All right, so last week, I'm just going to do a very, very quick recap of last week, if that's all right, just so I can correct whatever I didn't like that I said last week. So that's the easy way. Last week, I actually made a lot of hard work out of stuff that really shouldn't have been so difficult. Conceptually, it's very, very hard, but really, if we want to get our head around it, it's not that hard. What I would correct from last week, I'm not going to bother saying what I am correcting, but what I would correct is when we talk about the beginning of time, the beginning of existence, we start with the position of the infinite. This is a finite reality. This is not the beginning. A finite reality has to come from something else. In the finite reality, everything is born and everything dies. Everything has a beginning point, an evolution point, and a time at which it comes to an end. It's measured through progress, through measurement. Measurement is the comparison of one thing with another thing, something after compared to something before. That's the finite reality that we live in. The infinite is immeasurable. The infinite is constant. The infinite doesn't change. If it did change, it wouldn't be infinite. In that every moment of the infinite wouldn't be infinite. Infinite doesn't mean 1 + 1 + 1 reoccurring. Infinite is a constant, unchanged, non-divisible, in all directions, in no directions. It is everything and nothing at the same time. That is the infinite. So, when we talk about the beginning of something within the infinite, I really liked last week's meditation, if I may say so myself, because last week's meditation for me, this is terrible. This is terrible. I don't know. Is that better? Just press like if this is better for you. I'll do this without the books. All right, so last week's meditation, what I really liked was it allowed us to experience something using an intellectual process, but it wasn't about doing the maths as much as getting our acceptance, having a stage of acceptance of the content. And what we did last week was we did a meditation in which we allowed. And allowing is the word that I didn't really spend a lot of time on last week, but allowing is the magic word. What the infinite does is allows for a finite. If I say, like I did last week with the meditation, close your eyes and allow yourself to think of a tree, the tree doesn't replace anything in your head. It is an addition to what you are already thinking. But nothing is displaced when you think of a tree. Yes, one thought is displaced by another thought. But what I'm saying is you are not any less of who you are because you are now thinking of a tree. Are you less a human being when you think of a tree? Are you less your own personality when you think of a tree? Or are you what you are, including the tree? The tree is a part of you. So when we talk about the beginning, that the infinite allows for an emptiness, for a cholol, for a absence of its own infinite self, that is not detracting from the infinite. That is allowing something that is not infinite to exist within the infinite, as opposed to this is the infinite and the infinite creates something that's finite. I didn't like my metaphor that I used right at the end. I did like it, but not for last week, which was the idea of a painting, because it is good, but it's not great. That if you have a big white canvas and you paint black all over it, it is still white behind the black. But the problem with that metaphor is that there is the black and there is the white. There is the paint which is laid on top of the white canvas. But in truth, what I like about the imagination of the tree is that the tree is completely surrounded by your mind. Your mind fills the tree. Your mind creates the tree. The tree is not detracting from you at all. It doesn't remove your thought process, and yet your thought is not the tree. Do you see why I like it? Because it allows us to talk about the infinite, and the finite is within. It is an option within the infinite, as the tree is within your mind. It is not your mind, but it is not separate from your mind. What I like about that is it ties in with what we said last week about the flip side of a coin. The tail of a coin is connected to the head of the coin, but it is not the head of the coin. But you cannot draw a point at which the tail begins. The tail is just not the head, and it flows from the head of a coin. The other side, but where does the other side begin? On the other side of the head. What is the other side? The bottom of the coin, or of even the inside of the coin is the other side. So both the head and the tail have a relationship with each other, but they are not each other. And yet they are not each other. Good? I'm not going back to last week. I know last week was deep. We're not going back. But that's pretty much what we said last week. That last week we said the infinite allowed for the finite to exist within itself. Now, when we talk about that, that does not mean you exist and I exist and this world exists. The finite that we are talking about, we as people would probably see no different between the infinite and that finite. When we talk about that finite was allowed to exist, what we are talking about, remember when I talk about in past tense, I'm not talking about past tense of time, I'm talking about stages of something, so I'm talking about a higher or a lower stage. So of course when I talk in past tense, I'm talking about closer to the source, and when I talk about current or future tense, I'm talking further from the source. So when the infinite allows for the finite, it does not allow for anything physical. That would be an irresponsible interpretation. What we said is we're discussing something called Seder Hishtalshalos. This is a chain of stages. And every link of the chain links to the next and the prior. And every link within the chain has its relationship with its own self, the end of the link and the beginning of the link, and that link as it relates to the next link. And that the beginning of the next link is closer to the head of the prior link than the tail of the prior link. Remember? The tail of this link is further away than the head of this link, but the head of this link only exists because of the tail of the previous link. Remember that? You get what I'm saying? Yeah? So, because, I'll just show you on my keys, the whole of the key allows the link to go through. But the top of the key is closer to the beginning of this loop than the bottom of the loop is to itself. Good. So everything overlaps, even though it is happening after. But because it's happening after, because it overlaps, it demonstrates it's rooted in the prior level. And as I said, that we say in L'Chadodi, Sof Machshava Tchila, that the final thought is already in existence in the beginning of the thought. What the infinite conceives is a finished product. What the infinite doesn't have is a finished product. But when the infinite conceives a finished product, everything that is required for that finished product comes into account. And what I used as a metaphor last week was when you build a mall, it is not for the shops, but for the money that it will deliver. But the only way to get the money is by building a mall with nice shops. So the shops are a key to the money. They have to come first, but it was never about building shops. It was always about the money of which those shops will pay rent or the product will provide. What I want to talk about this week is what are those links? What is all that? What did the infinite allow for? The infinite allowed for something conceptual to exist. When you allow for the tree to exist in your mind, do you have a tree? No. But you've got the image of a tree. And of course, let's say you're a green thumb. So you sit back right now and you think about the most beautiful garden. Like, I want to build this beautiful garden. I want to grow. I want to plant the most beautiful garden. You've got a finished vision in your head. You can see the garden, right? You see the flowers, you can see the trees, you can see the vines, you can see the gazebo. You can see it all and you've got nothing, and yet you've got the micro nano detail. And now what you do is you set out to create that reality. So you'll go to the gardening store, you'll go to Bunnings, you'll buy the soil, you'll buy the seeds, you'll buy the gazebo pack and whatever it is, all those things, you're going to go out. So what are the stages that have happened here in the process of you creating the most beautiful garden from that thought? So the first thing that you had to do was have a thought. You had to have an image. So you have to picture that whole scene of the garden. So what have you started with? What was in your mind before the garden? Was your mind empty, or did you have every option of garden in your mind? So the way we work is we start with an empty mind and then we build up from there. But the truth is, deep within our subconscious, we actually have to have every flower already in our head. Because you're not making this up. You've actually got the information somewhere stored within. And when you start with the blank canvas is just what you consciously think. But really, you've got all these flowers in your head, and you're just going to pull out of your subconscious. I'm going to plant it onto my conscious mind, the image of this garden. So if you never knew what a daffodil was, you're not going to be able to plant a daffodil in your mind. Correct? You have to know it. If you know every species of flower and fauna, you're going to be able to create something tremendous. If you don't, you're not going to be able to create anything. So what must you have before you have nothing? You must have everything. What the infinite did was it had everything. When we talk about the infinite, this whole reality already existed, as does every infinite. When I was a kid, and I know you all did this as well, and I know you all do this still today, because I've read enough studies to say that we actually do this, and I felt very normal after reading a study about this. But when I was a kid, I used to ride home, and there were two routes there were many routes, but there were two particular routes that I could take as I got towards the final 200 meters of my parents' house. I could have gone up Alexandra Street and then turn right onto Murchison Street and go up the hill. My parents' house was at the top of the hill. The other option was go up Alma Road and then go down Lansdowne. One meant I go up the hill first and then I get the flat, or the other is I go flat and then I go up the hill. If I go up Alma Road and then Lansdowne, then I also have to come down Murchison, so it adds 50 metres to the ride. But it was different, and psychologically it was different because first came the hill and then came the flat, as opposed to the flat that then came the hill. And I used to often think when I got home, I'd get home and whatever would happen would happen. Either I'd get into a fight with my parents, depends what stage of high school. Either I got into a fight with my parents, or I was hungry, or I was thirsty, or I was this, or I was in a good mood, or I was in a bad mood, whatever. And I used to often think, I wonder what my life would be like if I rode the other route today. I know what my life is right now, based on what it is right now. But I wonder what would have happened. It's a bit like the sliding doors thing. I wonder what would have happened if I went the other way. I wonder what would have happened, and I used to often think, I wonder what would have happened if I did this differently. Where would everything be now? What if you didn't take that trip? What if you didn't have that child? What if you took that pay rise? What if you took that career change? What would life be like if you did something that you didn't end up doing? And I used to always think about that. And based on what we're learning tonight, what's interesting is that the infinite knows what would have happened. Because me taking a particular route home as a child on my bike is my reality. But it is not the only option of reality. It is the only reality that plays out. But as an option, there are other options. And in every moment, there are options of what the repercussions could be. The infinite knows all those options. That's not cool. It's not like, oh, wow, the infinite's got so much memory, so much RAM, so much knowledge. It's not that. It's because whatever route we take already exists within the infinite. None of us are living lives anew. What we're doing is we are charting for our first time our course in life. But the destination's already there. We don't know how we're going to get there, but the infinite does, because the infinite is the past, present, and future. And the infinite is every option. What if you're a woman and what if you're a woman? To all the men in the room, what if you were really a woman? What if you were born a girl? I wonder what life would have been like. Or to all the women in the room, imagine you were born a boy. What would life have been like? I don't know. But the infinite does, because that's a viable option. So all viable options are a part of the infinite. If it's not an option, it can't come to fruition. But we only live one particular option. So when you have a thought of a garden, if you have a thought I want to plant the most beautiful garden. It will only be as beautiful as the options that you have at your disposal. You may only plant a poppy field. You may only plant cactus. But whatever it is, before you plant it, you've got an infinite amount of thought, and then you choose onto your white canvas of your mind what I'm going to have. What the infinite did, in context of stages, what the infinite is everything. And then the infinite allowed for a white canvas and drew from its infinite side, in its consciousness, not in reality, in its consciousness, the infinite moves a couple options from the infinite to populate the finite. Now, do you know what that means? It means that when the infinite moves ideas from the infinite into the finite, from the infinite options into the finite, it's not just moving a flower, it is moving a part of the infinite. And so what the infinite did, what the Ein Sof did, what Hashem did was Hashem planted small, this makes no sense, small components of infinite energy into a finite setting and made it continue to exist. This can only happen in Olam HaMachshava. This only happens in the world of thought. Right now, you can make fire and water coexist in your mind. Fire and water in real life aren't going to coexist, not without some sort of film separating. But right now, make fire burn in your mind within a cup of water. Go on, light a match in your mind and put that match in the cup of water and allow it to burn. See? You can do that. How cool is that? We can meditate on that for a while. Placed the potential onto the canvas. So what is the first thing that the infinite did? First thing is took the building blocks that would make up the image on that canvas and placed them into the canvas. So what has happened? There is nothing moving. Go and close your eyes for a moment and think of the garden. Put roses, put daffodils. Allow it to all be there, right? It's all there? You've got that? Good. Open your eyes, you haven't got anything. So there's nothing there. But there is something there because you created it in your mind. Are you ready to do it? No. You ready to go shopping in Bunnings? Maybe. But what you don't have is anything. But you have an image. And the image is what is going to lead to a reality. So the first thing that the infinite did was it created a conceptual reality. It created concept. That's the first stage. There's a goal. I haven't spoken about the goal. I'm just talking about the process of getting to the goal. We'll talk about the goal next week. What is the infinite looking to allow to exist? This reality is called Or. This conceptual reality is called Or, light. What's light? I know what you can say. Light is both wave and particle. Aren't we all smart? What is light? Can you hold light? You can't hold light. If you walk into a dark room, you can't walk into a light room with a jar, put a lid on, and carry it into the dark. What is light? Well, light is a product of the source. Where does light come from? Light comes from a light bulb. Light comes from a candle. Light comes from the sun. Light comes from the moon. There is a source. Is the light separate from the source? Yes. So where does the light begin? In the source. At what point does the light become separate from the source? Have you ever thought about that? Where does light stop being the source? Is the light the source? Yes, it is. Is the light the source? No, it isn't. Light is the source, but light is rooted within the source, but it is not the source, which means light is a very, very... the light of something is what the something is allowing you to know of it. So your personality. What's your personality? Your personality is you, right? Who here has a personality? Just make sure you're alive. If you heard that question, you've got a personality. Now the question is, when you let your personality out, are they knowing who you are? Yes. But do they know who you are? No. Where does your personality come from? Does it come from your skin? No, it comes from your mind. It comes from your emotions. It comes from deep within. So your light comes from deep within you and you let it out. But is it you? No. It is the part of you which you are letting other people engage with. So what the infinite does is it allows for the light of the infinite. In Kabbalah, it's called the Or Ein Sof, the infinite light. Why is the Or Ein Sof so important? Why is the infinite light so important? Because if it's the infinite light, what is it not? It is not the source of light. Everything we have, everything that exists comes from the infinite light. And the infinite light is nothing, because light is nothing without its source. The tapestry, the conceptual tapestry, is populated by the infinite light. But the infinite light is just a finite micro element of what the source of light is willing to radiate. We still haven't got anything. Light is only, when you go into space, is there light? Yes. You look at the astronauts, they're all white. But space is black. You need a surface to see light. When it's a hazy day, you see the light because there's haze in the air. The reason why we see light is because we have an atmosphere. There's something to capture the light. If there's nothing to capture the light, there is no light. There is light, but it's not to be seen. So what does light tell you? What must there be if there's light? Something to receive the light. If something is radiating out of itself, if I'm letting you in on my personality, what must there be besides me? There must be a you. There must be a you. There must be an other. As soon as you start radiating, there must be a space into which you radiate. As soon as light can be seen, we know that there is something that is seeing the light. There is something to absorb the light. I don't mean that there's a human to see the light there, but there's an absorption. Otherwise, you can't see the light. You go through space, there's heaps of light waves. But there's nothing, you can't see the light because the light isn't being absorbed and reflected. As soon as there's light, there is a receiver of light. As soon as the infinite radiated, there became something to radiate to. And that is now our next stage of progress. That there is the infinite, and the infinite allows for the radiance of its own self. The radiance means that there must be something to receive that radiation. What is going to be radiated? What is that? It's something that comes from the infinite. It's a particular emanation. When you got red, what is red? Red is part of Rogabiv. It's one of the colors. It's one of the colors. If there's red, there are other colors. But while you've got red, you've only got red as the filtered light that you can see. You can't see yellow when you see red. You see yellow when you see yellow. Red is red. You've got that color. All others are filtered. But where does red come from? It comes from the spectrum of light. If there is red, there is a spectrum. Can I see the spectrum? No, but there is a spectrum. Which means that as soon as something moves into the infinite, from the infinite into the finite, although it comes from the infinite, it also means that it always existed within the infinite. So when you have red, you have not just red, you've got an awareness of all colors, even if you can't imagine the other colors. And so what we've got is Hashem's first stage was allowing something to exist and then transmitting micro elements of itself, of Hashem, into the finite, conceptually. Remember, this is all in your mind. All in your mind. When you're planting this whole garden in your mind, there is no garden. One could say that this is the very, very first stage. When you have an idea, who here has ever had an idea? You were standing in the shower, and then you have an idea. Where'd that idea come from? It wasn't there before. Where do ideas come from? If you know the answer to this, you could be a very wealthy person. Come on, let's work this out. Where do ideas come from? Ideas come from stimulation, ultimately, right? You get stimulated. Pardon? A need. So there's some sort of, you have this moment of awareness. There's an outside stimulant that triggers a thought process. You discover a need, you think of something. You're standing in the shower and somehow something triggered a thought. But there's something which is a nice metaphor for what I want to talk about. Where does Chokhmah come from? Where does Chokhmah come from? Where does the first, when you have a thought, what do you receive? You don't just receive the beginning of a thought, right? When you have that thought in the shower, you don't go, hey, I think I'm starting to think. When you have an idea in the shower, you're finished thinking, right? You come out smiling. I say, what are you smiling about? What happened in the bathroom? You're like, oh, nothing. I just had the most amazing idea. It's not I am having an amazing idea. It's not that I'm starting to think of an idea. It's I have had. As soon as you have a chokhmah, as soon as you have a spark of inspiration, it's past. You've had it. And what did you have? You had everything. When you have, remember, we're playing with the idea of planting a garden. I have no idea where this came from. We don't do our garden. I'm one of the luckiest tenants in Melbourne. My landlord does our garden. I know, and I also pay water bills. Get out. It's like the weirdest lease you've ever heard. But we have a garden. It is overgrown, admittedly. Right now, our garden has become overgrown because I don't do the garden, and the garden has been overseas, so that's my problem now. But I don't know. This is the idea I'm working with. So you have this, when you have the image, right? You've all got an image of a garden that you want to plant, right? Because I've asked you to do this. Think of your perfect garden. Good, you've got it. You've got it. You're finished. You might go, oh, I think there are more details. Those details were always there. You're just going to uncover them. When you have a chokhmah, you have everything. You've got the whole thought. What you don't have is knowledge of your own thought. You need to pull it apart. But it's all there. You have to pull it apart to know what it is that you were thinking. That's why when you come out of the bathroom smiling, someone says, what? What's your big idea? And you go, I can't tell you. Not because I'm keeping it a secret. I just have no way of transmitting this to you. I need to think about it. Have you ever thought about your own thought? So chokhmah is that thought which is going to have to be dissected. What is chokhmah? Chokhmah is everything. From beginning to end, the shapes, the colors. The problem with chokhmah is that there is no order. It is all just mushed together into a tiny point. It's a single dot. You need to put it under the microscope to start seeing this incredible world that exists within chokhmah. Chokhmah is so big that it takes up no space. It's not. You know what the problem with this room is? It's too big. There's a wall over there. There's a wall over there. There's all this space in between. But if I want to conceptualize this room, flatten it. I know there's space in between. I know there are walls. I don't need them to stand up to know them. Where does chokhmah come from, though? If chokhmah has everything, where did it come from? It came from the prior awareness of everything that the chokhmah has. The chokhmah is actually a single point of all the wisdom that you have. It can only be made up of stuff that you know. But it's a little bit more than everything that you know. That's why when you invent something, it's beyond what you know. There's a certain amount more that you've chapped. You can't explain it, you need to work it out. But there's a bit more than just the knowledge that you have. Chokhmah comes from something greater than you. That very first spark of inspiration comes from something greater, something outside. The image of the garden that you have that existed within the infinite, within the finite, it was informed from the infinite. And so there's a link, but it's not a graspable link. You know, people talk about meditation. Meditation in Judaism is fascinating. A form of meditation, hisponenus. We did a bit of it last week. One of the coolest things about hisponenus meditation is that you can't explain it. You can only who here has meditated on an idea that began to envelop them, and they began to envelop the idea? And it takes you on a trip. You go on a journey, and you're feeling rather enlightened. You can't explain enlightenment to someone. You can't say, well, it feels like this and it does that. But if you're experiencing enlightenment, you know what it feels like. You know what it is. It's this incredible trip. You're not going anywhere, but it's just this absolute comfort and connection and ease with whatever it is that has enlightened you. And that thing that has enlightened you is in you, and yet it is greater than you. You can't explain it, but you can experience it. The Chokhmah can't be explained. Chokhmah is experienced. It's a moment in which you have connected to something that is greater than you, and therefore you've been able to download something that is greater than you. That's why you can't fabricate a Chokhmah. You can only allow Chokhmah. You can't say, I need to have an idea. You know what? I'm going to turn on the hot water. I'm going to get into the shower. Come on. Any moment now. You can't force Chokhmah. You can only allow Chokhmah. You have to move into a state of absolute ego abnegation. You can't try to invent the next big thing, but you can invent the next big thing because you allowed the next big thing to present itself to you. It was out there and it had to enter you. The chokhmah that you have comes from a greater place than you. So chokhmah is the first building block of the universe. We're entering into the 10 Sefirot here. The 10 Sefirot are the 10. Do you know everything in this world is made up of the 10 Sefirot? There are 10 primary ingredients to everything in the universe. 10. Fine, they overlap with each other, so they become 100 or 300, whatever. But still, 10 primary elements. 10 primary elements. And everything is made up of it. I'm going to show you where it's everywhere. In colors, in the thoughts, in your business, in your relationships, everywhere. Your personality, it's all the same 10. You know how predictable the universe is? You remember how I said last week that Kabbalah just looks at the universe from a conceptual point of view. It just looks at the concepts, the building blocks of the universe. And you know the universe. You don't have to know the universe to know it. You look at the root of the universe and you know the universe. That's what we were talking about last week with the mystics and how they're able to look at the world. Chokhmah is the first. So Chokhmah is that spark of inspiration. It's in your thought process. Chokhmah is the seminal drop. Where do babies come from? So babies come from a masculine and feminine input. First, there is a masculine input. It is a tiny, tiny seminal drop that will then be received by the feminine, that will contribute its tiny, tiny drop, which will then develop over the next 9 months. But it started with a tiny drop. What was in that tiny drop? Everything. Everything that is required to make a human is within that tiny drop. The seminal drop, chokhmah. So it's not just how you think, it's also how you came to be. How does a tree grow from a seed? What has to happen to that seed before it can grow? It needs to rot. It needs to decompose. The shell needs to completely shed itself. It has to remove all its ego. No different to getting in the shower because you want to have an idea. It's not going to happen. It's only when you release yourself that you have that idea. Chokhmah is everywhere. Everything starts with a chokhmah. Everything starts with a chokhmah. The universe started with a chokhmah. And where does chokhmah come from? The infinite. Is chokhmah something? No. If you have this brilliant idea in the shower, have you got it? No. You've got an idea. You haven't even got a patent. You haven't got a drawing. You haven't got the fidget spinners. You know those things that my kids are playing with? Where did that come from? Someone had an idea. Make a fidget spinner. But because that person had that, it's possible 1 million people had that idea, but only one person made it, and then everyone else made it. You only make it after you've had the idea. When you've got an idea, you've got nothing. When the infinite allowed, there was nothing at that stage. The next stage is the development, binah. Binah is the development of something. You have an idea, you need to now pull it apart. You don't want to add anything new to your idea. You want to break your idea up into many, 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 many parts so you can analyze it and order it and put it into different components. Right, what's the beginning, what's the middle, what's the end, what's the color, all that. I need to break it all down. Analysis. Break it down. You know, when one of the things, we went to Israel over summer. And this was a big family trip for us. My wife, myself, our 4 kids. This was a few years in the planning. In fact, we had a few kids on the way while we were planning it. We did. We thought we were going. Anyway, I'm not going to tell you, but it's good. It's all good. And but in the last few months there was a lot of planning. And one of the things was who's going to pack the suitcases. It was a given that I wasn't going to pack the suitcases, not because I'm too busy, but it's because I'm not a good suitcase packer. I'm from the school of thought that believes that when you're going on holiday, just put everything in the suitcase. Just get it all in. Rochel's from the school of thought that if you put things in an orderly way, it'll all fit. My suitcases generally are always bulging. Rochel's suitcases seem to always have extra space. Lucky she doesn't take people's sunglasses, or else I would have someone to help me pack. Anyway, if you didn't get that, well, you're just not up to date with what's going on in Colombia nowadays. So, I'm not up to date. Whatever, headphones. But they're headphones, not sunglasses. Oh, what an idiot. She should have done sunglasses. No one's looking for sunglasses. None of you were. So, when you pack in an orderly manner, a lot more fits. When you pack in a disorderly manner, not as much fits. But when you want to see something, you need to spread it all out. You want to go on a trip, spread all your clothes out, and you look at it, and it's like, this is never going to fit. And it's true. If you try to jumble it all back like Chochmah, if you unpack my suitcase, I promise you, unless you're folding things up, you'll never be able to fit everything back in. It just explodes. You can't get it all back in. So you spread it all out. What have we got? We've got pants, we've got t-shirts, singlets, undies, socks, shoes, coats, bathers, goggles, hairbrush, toothpaste, toothbrush, right? It's all over the place. That's binah. There's nothing new here, but I really want to get a good look at it before I pack my suitcase. Where did all that binah come from? Chochmah. You don't analyze what you don't have. You only analyze what you have. Accountants don't analyze numbers that aren't presented to them. You only analyze what you have. Chochmah deconstructed is called binah. Binah can only happen after Chochmah. But is binah Chochmah? Not at all. It's a completely different entity. This is the second building block that goes onto our blank canvas. This is the next energy that Hashem allows into the finite space. However, is Chochmah separate? Is binah separate from Chochmah? No, it's not. You don't have binah without Chochmah. If you have all of Chochmah, it's got all the potential of all the different ideas of this. It's got all the information of this idea. Does binah exist in there? Yes, it does. When you have 100, you have 10 times 10, and you have 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1. You've got 5 times 20. It's all there. It's all there. When you thought of 100, you may not have seen all those things, but when you deconstruct it, it's all there. Binah exists within Chochmah, but binah is also the tool of deconstructing Chochmah. So when my suitcase is all packed, binah's there. It's all cramped. In order for you to see it, you need to pull everything out and analyze it. But when it was in Chochmah, when my clothes were all in the suitcase, did they all have their own identity? Yes. But while my suitcase was done up, you couldn't see the identity of my clothes. You need to deconstruct it in order to see the clothing in the suitcase. That is the second Sefirah, but the second Sefirah already exists within the first, but it's not apparent, so therefore it becomes its own entity. That's the second of 10 building blocks. Next comes Das. Das is knowledge. Das is when you have that idea and now you analyze it, Das knows what you're going to do next. You know what needs to happen next. You so know your idea that you know your path forward. When you first had the Chochmah in the shower, you had no idea what you were going to do with it. That's why you came out of the bathroom and you were like smiling because you had no idea. Binah, you sat down for the next 2 days, 8 months, 15 years, however long binah takes. But when you finish binah, it's fine. You know all the pieces. Das is, what am I doing with all these pieces? Not what's my next move? To know your next move. To know your next move, you need to know everything that you have till now. Das is the first time that we're going to transmit the Chochmah to something. Das is a delivery point which connects the idea to the consumer. It connects the idea to whatever the other is. So the infinite has an idea. The infinite says, hey, I'm going to, the infinite is allowing for a finite. It conceives the finite. It analyzes the finite. And now it begins to deliver the finite. That's Das. So you think about your flower bed, then you start thinking, okay, what does my flower bed have? I can see the roses, I've got the daffodils, I've got the lavender, got the manure, got the soil, got the watering can, got the gazebo. Okay, that's my binah, das. I can see what it is to the point that I know what I need to do next. So you've gone through the intellectual process. There's an intellectual design to the universe. Everything has a place. Everything has an action. Everything has a reaction. It's all there. Now we need to start moving things along. For that, we need emotion. The next one is chesed, the next building block. Das, you can see, is born out of binah, which is born out of chachma. So in truth, it's a part of it. So, if I would design this as the Kabbalists did, well, lucky they drew this out. You'd have a big circle, the infinite. Within the circle is the finite. Within that is the chachma. Within that is the binah. Within that is the das. As you can tell, when we get to this world, we're going to be working with a pinprick of a dot at the center of this whole thing, and you realize this whole universe, 14.5, how big is our universe? 14.5 billion light years in diameter or something. So I'm constantly expanding at a rapid rate. It's a pinprick. It's a nothing in context of all the other dimensions in which it exists. So the meditation, when we finish this series in 2 more weeks, it's the most amazing meditation. There is nothing better than waking up in the morning and sitting down for half an hour and doing a meditation on the reverse of this, and you realize, what am I? I am a dot on a planet, in a solar system, in a galaxy, within an area of the universe which is rapidly expanding, which is a pinprick within the finite dimension of Asiya, Yetzira, Bria, Atzilus, the Olamot, the Sefirot as concepts, the empty space, which is nothing within the infinite. I tell you, it's awesome. You'll say, we might just sit and meditate. Let's get there. So chesed. Chesed is the emotional response to the thought process. Chesed is I love it. Chesed is about the connection. Chesed is about that passion, that excitement, that lending yourself to the idea. Just really getting out there. Chesed means kindness. What is kindness? Kindness is your ability to connect with something else. You see a poor person, what's the kind thing to do? Give your money to the poor. You see a little child, you want to do them a chesed, you give them a lolly. Do they need the lolly? No. Is the lolly good for them? Probably not. You giving it? Yeah. Why? Because I need to connect with it. It's all about the child and me. It's all about the poor person and me giving. But when you're giving, you're extending. It's not really about you, it's about the other, but the other is making you aware of this givingness within yourself. It's an excitement. Chesed has no boundaries. Chesed has got to be an orb. It's got to be a circle. It's got no boundaries. It's just always expanding. A Baal Chesed is able to give to anyone. A Baal Chesed, a person who is kind, doesn't discriminate. You notice there's some people they give charity. They don't care what it is. Like a true charity giver is like African children. Yeah, I'll give you $5 for that. Was that homeless people on Swanson Street? Yeah, here's $10 for that. Well, there's a school fete. Yeah, here's $15 for that. Oh, you came from Russia, you're collecting for the Jewish community there? What's that like? It's hard here. Here's $40 for that. Baal Chesed is just someone who, they don't ask what they ask because they're curious, but they want to give. They give, they're not discriminate. Chesed just gives. It could be very dangerous, Chesed. Again, I keep forgetting. Chesed is everywhere. Chesed is a color. Chesed is a personality type. Chesed is an emotion. Chesed is the ability for one. Chesed is love. Chesed is kindness. Chesed is expansion. Chesed is attachment. There are all sorts of places that you're going to find chesed. Chesed is the feeling that you get when you've got this thought. I've got this thought, I want to make it happen. I'm going to go out there. I'm loving the idea. I'm really excited. Can't wait to get it out there. The next one is, so the infinite has this idea, now wants to get it out there. So chesed is this lurch, this surge of energy. It's like, here we go. You know, that. And then you need gvura. Temperate. Whoa. Pace yourself, bro. Just settle down. You might be over-investing in this. You know, chesed's like, oh, what a brilliant idea. I'm going to sell my house for this idea. And gvura's like, sell your house for this idea? And where are you going to live, my friend? Oh, I forgot about that. Give it boundaries. How many widgets do you want to produce? Oh, millions. Maybe we start with 100. What are we making the widgets out of? I don't know, metal. Let's use gold. Let's start with stainless steel. You know, let's give it a confine. Bring boundary to the excitement. So the infinite has this idea. But when the infinite has an idea, it is the infinite. And the infinite starts surging with energy. What's the infinite energy? Well, it's infinite. It's going to destroy everything. You need the confine of gvura. Gvura is discipline. Gvura is judgment. Gvura is detachment. Gvura is boundary. Gvura is strength. Gvura is restraint. These are all different qualities of gvura. Remember, I'm talking about 10 building blocks. You're going to have to find how everything fits into each one. But where does restraint happen? Because there is something to restrain. So where does gvura come from? It comes from chesed, which was the result of das, which was born out of bina, which always existed in chokhmah. You can see it's all linked. They're all so individually different that we call them separate, but you can see they're all linked. We've got a chain being formed here. Each link is its own, but each link is already within the previous one. Gvura tempers the chesed. Chesed gvura tiferes, balance, beauty, harmony. They're all the same thing. You ever seen a beautiful person? Who here has ever looked at a beautiful person? Yeah? What made them beautiful? You know what made them beautiful? It was your mind noticing an extreme case of balance and symmetry within the other. Beautiful people are naturally balanced physically. Their eyes are the same shape, their eyebrows are similar, and the more perfect, the more beautiful. So you can actually create a beautiful, but it's got to have depth and complexity, which is why you can't just draw beauty, or not human beauty. Human beauty has the depth, but also the balance. A disfigured person is a horrible person to look at. They're not horrible, it's just your brain doesn't do well with asymmetrical looking faces and things. What makes them horrible? Because one eye is up here and one eye is there. It's not horrible. It's just asymmetrical. But the brain says, no. What the brain loves is if things are all in the right place. That's why quirky people are interesting. Because they're still beautiful and yet they're not quite symmetrical. There's something asymmetric about them. But that perfect symmetry of the perfect shoulders and perfect hair and the perfect eyes and the perfect eyebrows and the color and everything, that's a symmetry. Tiferes is a harmony of all different things, of the right and the left. So what harmony is, what Tiferes is not the balance of chesed and gvura. It is the product of when chesed and gvura find the perfect balance in any situation. It is just the right amount of restraint to the amount of energy. So we've got the energy, chesed, gvura, the restraint, and the product is going to be tiferes. You need the constant chesed and you need the restraint of gvura, but tiferes is then that balance. What does balance allow for? It allows for a progression. Balance allows that the energy that's being produced is not going to be disproportionate. It's not going to destroy anything. When you have balance, you don't have disproportion. You don't have any destructive energy. There is no negativity in Tiferes. There is negative chesed. You can give a lot of money to a heroin addict. That is negative chesed. Gvura, you can be completely detached. You see a poor person on the street. I don't want to know about that person. That person's a heroin addict. They deserve to be on the street. That's detachment. Gvura, you've given them all these boundaries between you and them. You've put them in a box so it's easy to isolate them. Complete opposites, but when they work together, you end up with Tiferes. Tiferes, you can never go, oh, that's horrible harmony. You don't have horrible harmony. Harmony, by definition, means everything is accepting and balancing one another. Where is Tiferes rooted? In Gvura and Chesed. It's sometimes more Chesed, sometimes more Gvura, whatever is precise and perfect for the situation. We find it in personalities. We find it in We find it in personalities, we find it in nature. Wherever you see beauty, you see Tiferes. Those are emotional responses. Next come the what are you going to do about it responses. Netzach. Netzach is our seventh, Chochmah, Bina, Das, Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes. Netzach is our seventh building block. So far, all the building blocks are distinct, but they're all rooted. Netzach is endurance. When you're going to go about, so you thought about the beautiful garden. Now you're getting excited about it. I'm getting excited, but not too excited. It's just a garden. Just the right level of excitement. Now what am I going to do about it? Netzach. I'm going to go get the stuff. I'm going to go get in my car. I'm going to go to Bunnings. I'm going to go buy the stuff that I need for this garden. I'm going to plant it. Netzach, but there are things in your way. Netzach is about overcoming and getting past the things that are obstructing you. What are things that might obstruct you in life? Distraction, negativity, loss of energy. You know, has anyone ever here tried to run a marathon without training? You can go with the best of intentions. Chochmah, I can see myself. What is it? Bina. It's a marathon. Das. Yeah, I'm ready for this. Chesed, I'm pumped. Gvura, but easy. Let's go. Let's enroll. Let's follow the steps to get there. Tiferes, I'm feeling good. Netzach, you got to do it. I ran a 1K and I'm like, I give up. You've lost your endurance. There's no Netzach. Netzach is the endurance. Keep going, keep pushing. So what are the things that get in your way? Negativity gets in your way. Bad thoughts get in your way. People get in your way. Blocks get in your way. You know, if you've got to find a route. You've got to get between the obstructions, or you've got to chop those or destroy those obstructions. You know, how are you going to get from here to Bunnings? Bunnings, Hawthorne is the closest Bunnings to Spiritgrow. Just, I don't know how I know that, but you can tell I've done a bit of stuff. There are a few ways to get to Bunnings. Number one, you can go by helicopter. There's no helipad right in that area, but you can get there. There's nothing in your way. Another way to get to Bunnings is with a tank. Anything that's in your way, just flatten it. Nothing's going to stand in your way between here and Bunnings Hawthorne. Flatten it. Netzach. Push through. Or, Netzach, you can weave your way. But make sure you've got enough petrol in your car, because if it runs out of petrol, you're not getting there. You've got to keep pushing. So Netzach is about keep pushing. It's the way you're going to go about it. There's no emotion here. It's not like I'm excited or not excited. It's about I'm doing or I'm not doing. There's no thought anymore. Not like, oh, what's this garden going to look like? I've got to get to the garden center. That's all that's important now. We're far from Chochmah, but we're completely connected to the Hishtauschlus of Chochmah bin Das Chesed Gvura Tiferes Netzach. The next is Hod. Humility. Humility. Hod is majesty. Hod is the ability to allow other things to exist in the process. So I use the example of when you drive from here to Bunnings, you're going to have to go around buildings. You might have to drive around certain parks. Netzach is like, oh, there's a park in my way, stuff the park. I'll drive through the park, no worries. Hod is, no, let's allow the park to exist. I'm going to drive around the park. The park can exist, the children playing in the park can exist, and I don't mind spending a bit more time driving a longer route. I don't mind spending more petrol. Hod is about allowing things to be in the process of doing. Politicians need a lot of Hod in a democratic system. No one is ever going to pass legislation if they don't do deals, unless they've got this unbelievable majority in their party, but you've got to do deals with the other side of the house. Even if you are in the Westminster system, even if you have a large political party, you've got to do deals with your backbenchers and the front benchers and the right and the left of your own party. Even the right wing have a right and left within it. The left wing have a right and left. And so you've got to do deals. You're not going to be able to get anything done if you don't do deals. It's about getting the deed done, but the deed getting done is only going to happen if you work with people, if you allow, if you negotiate, if you can tolerate. Hod is about that. Hod is sometimes being submissive. Hod is also sometimes not allowing something to even exist in your mind. I'm not engaging with it. Sometimes Hod is I'm going to engage with it, But the way Hod does it is very different to how Netzach. Netzach engages with something by destroying it. Hod engages with something by allowing it to not bother, to not be a part of the obstructive process. It's part of the constructive process. So what we've got here is Netzach. Gvura tempered the excitement. Netzach was, let's get it going. Hod. But allow multiple things to exist in this universe. It can't just be a monosystem. We've got to have many elements to our system. Netzach, Hod, Yesod. Yesod is connection. Connection. Now let's begin to connect with the idea and connect with where the idea is going to be implemented. That's Yesod. Lay the foundations. Lay the groundwork. Begin to move into the process of delivery. Yesod is bringing everything there into a point of delivery. I've gone to Bunnings. I'm at Bunnings. I'm now buying the stuff. I'm bringing it home, baby. I'm coming with the stuff home. We're on our way to delivering the manure and the seeds and the stakes and the ties and the gazebo pack. It's all coming home. I've got it all. And now I deliver it. That's Yesod. Malchus, build it. Put it together. Plant it all. You've got it all. Malchus, what does Malchus work with? Whatever's been delivered. You're now at home. Malchus is the empire. It's the kingship. There is no king without a people. There is no empire. You don't have an empire of fields. You have an empire of cities, of people in your empire. There has to be a collective that is there. Then you've got an empire. So Malchus is that you've now got it all. This is our 10th step. Now you can find this in everything. I just described it. Your empire, your politics. You can find the Sefirot everywhere. The 10 Sefirot are literally everywhere. And you just combine them and you end up with all sorts of different products. Going back to last week, the infinite allowed for the finite to exist within the infinite. And then it began to populate the finite with little qualities that can be found within the infinite. There are an infinite number of building blocks, but Hashem used 10 particular to populate this finite construct called the universe. What comes after Malchus, in your opinion? Malchus is the 10th. What will come next? Chochmah. Once we finish the cycle, we move into the next iteration of the cycle. Look what you've done. You thought about the garden. Chochmah. You know exactly what seeds you want. Bina, das. You know, chesed. You all got excited about your garden. Gvura, not too excited. Netzach. After this class, I'm going to go out. Hod. Probably not tonight, I'll go tomorrow. Yesod, I've got it all worked out. I'm ready to go. Malchus, my idea is finished. Now you got to do it. Chochmah. Got to get into my car. Got to begin the process again. Then it just keeps going over and over and over and over again. You know, if you want to stand up right now, what are you going to require? Chochmah. The brain's going to have to engage with the leg, right? Get the leg moving. Then you want to take a step. How do you take a step? Chochmah. Move the leg forward. Bina, das, chesed. How much move? Not too much, I'm going to trip. Not too small, I'm not going to get anywhere. You're constantly going through Chochmah, Bina, das, chesed, v'rtfes, netzach, Hod, Yesod, Malchus. You took a step. Next, I want to do another step. Chochmah, I want another step. Bina. Okay, I need step, not run. Das, I got it. Chesed, I'm excited, I'm stepping. Gvura, not too big. Netzach, there's a rock in the way, just stand on it. Hod, actually no, you might roll your ankle. Just put your foot on the side of the rock. Yesod, step on the floor. Malchus, lurch forward. Chochmah. You're always doing this. It's like everywhere, everything. You want to write, I want to write. That's the idea, Chochmah, pick up the pen. It's everywhere, and it repeats itself over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. What we're going to do next week, are we ready up to next week? What we're going to do next week is look how these players, these 10 Sefirot, play themselves over and over and over again to create dimensions of reality. What is the flow of energy from one series of 10 to the next series of 10 to the next series of 10 that create dimensions of reality until we understand how this world got here? Because one thing is for sure, hang on, no idea after tonight how this world got here. Because the 10 steps cannot be the passage from the infinite to the finite. That'd be the most ridiculous thing anyone's ever said. That in 10 small steps, the infinite, which contains all ideas, moved into an absence of itself to allow this physical world to exist, and why can't I trace my connection to it? That's next week. Next week we will explore how the 10 move through 4 primary dimensions, how we move from the world of chaos into the world of order, from toil into tikkun. And then the week after that we begin to settle down and we appreciate our world and we begin to meditate on Seder Hishtalshelus. Last week we explored the infinite allowing finite. This week we explored the building blocks of reality. Those building blocks can be found everywhere around us. But did you notice how I kept using them to explain personality and the way we think, blah, 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 but I never studied psychology? Now, I didn't do such a good job explaining it, but what I'm showing you is that if you understand the building blocks, you will identify it in everything. You'll understand what colors produce, you'll understand what emotions produce, you'll understand what thoughts produce, you'll understand how things come into being. You understand the universe when you understand the blocks that make up the universe. More about that next week. Have a very good night. You can hound me at the door.